Okay, we're rolling. Okay, everybody. It's been a little while since I've kind of done one of these, but I'm gonna talk about Venom: The Last Dance because I saw that last night, and boy, have I got some thoughts, Sebastian. Yeah. Now, famously, and by famously, I mean I don't actually know if I've ever talked about this on this show. I don't like the first two Venom movies. You do mostly, right?
I like the first one. I like the second one to a point.
Yeah, I don't really like either of them. And then as far as real quick, as far as spoilers go, I will not be spoiling anything significant. Sebastian has not seen the movie yet, so I don't want to spoil it for him, even though because like by the time this episode goes up, because I'm so like behind on editing right now, the movie, like if anybody wanted to have seen that movie, they probably will have seen it by now. But regardless, what I am going to kind of discuss in this is some stuff that doesn't happen. I don't consider that to be spoilery, but you might. And also just like broad strokes about some stuff that happens near the end. I will avoid going into specifics, but it's kind of hard to talk around that. And it's also kind of hard to like not mention anything about that. So I will stay out of specifics, but I do like I am going to talk broadly about some of that stuff. So yeah, Venom: The Last Dance. Okay, so Sebastian, this might shock you. I didn't hate this.
Oh, wow.
Actually. Yeah. However, it's to a point. I think the first 2/3 are pretty good, actually. I liked them. Like, I don't know if it's just like a Stockholm Syndrome kind of thing, if I've just kind of gotten used to what this series is, or if they really leaned into it more. It felt like they leaned into like the weird Eddie Brock stuff that I feel works best with this franchise. You know, there's a scene where like they do a fucking Fortnite dance to ABBA's Dancing Queen, and it's stupid, but it's just like it's stupid enough that I was just kind of like, fuck it, man, I'm down for this. There's also a point. This was kind of strange actually, but it is kind of like I kind of respect the weirdness. By the way, everybody, I'm getting over a cold, so if I'm coughing or my voice sounds weird throughout, that is why. But there's a point where like a bunch of characters just start having like a sing along to David Bowie's Space Odyssey, or Space Oddity rather. It's like weird stuff like that, which is just like kind of like it kind of feels like a fever dream, a lot of this movie, but I think it kind of works to that advantage of the movie. I also think the action in the first 2/3 is better than the previous couple of movies. I think it's kind of, there's some creative stuff they do with it. I think that's cool enough. Exposition in the first like act is really fucking clunky. That is the one thing in the first 2/3 where I was like, oh my god, like it was laughably clunky at times. And characters, there are certain characters, like a science group thing that they're doing, part of like a B plot, and most of those characters are just like, I don't understand what their deal is. One of them, Chiwetel Ejiofor's character, is really cool. He's playing a character from the comics. I don't know if that was, like, if we knew that before, but he's playing a character from the King in Black run that I think is really cool. So I was happy to kind of see, to realize that that's who he was playing. And they do, like, change his story and his role in the story. But that's fine. I think it still works. So, like, I think generally, again, I don't mind the first 2/3. It's like paced insane. This movie has like no chill. It just is like nonstop the whole time. But I think like largely it does work to a point, because I fucking hated the third act. The third act I think sucks really badly. It encapsulates like everything that I hate about the Venom movies dialed up to 11. Where it's just kind of like a sea of swirling goo and it's set at night, so you can't really see what's happening. And this is where I also think the structural flaws with the movie as a whole come in. For one thing, there's like some character reveal kind of stuff here where the way it's played, I feel like it's a character from the comics that I've probably read, but because of like how this corner of the universe works, the Venom Spider-Man corner of the Marvel universe works, these characters have no distinguishing factors, and so I just was like, who the fuck is that? We also have so this is again not a spoiler if you've seen the trailer. Null is in this, but do not go into this movie expecting him to have a major part to play, or any part to play really at all. He is in maybe 3 minutes of screen time, and this is where my big problems as a comic nerd come into play, because very clearly they want to do King in Black down the line, right? Like the full King in Black thing. Yeah. They don't do anything to really set it up here, though. Like, yeah, Null is in it, but he doesn't do anything, like, at all. He does fuck all. And, like, to the point where I don't know if I'm really going to go into details of how I would like this to go. Again, if that might kind of range into more spoiler stuff, because it kind of does more heavily imply what does happen when I talk about what doesn't happen in that sense. But there is a version of this movie where I think he plays a bigger role in the third act, which sets up Kenyon Black more and also just makes the ending have more impact and have a villain that has a stronger presence. Because the main villain, and again, not a spoiler, the main villain in this movie is that one like xenophage, the symbiote hunter that Null sends out, like that we see on the plane in the trailer. That's the main villain for the entire movie. And that I think is fine for the first like 2/3. But I think if Null had gotten a more prominent role in the third act and then, you know, they set him up as, you know, a major player going forward, I think that would have worked better because I like clearly like the Sonyverse is I think wants to make Null their Thanos, and I think that's a good idea. I think that's like the only thing left to do with this universe, to be honest. If you're not going to like cross him over with Spider-Man, that's the only thing to do left. And I to be honest, I actually think that they're gonna try and turn. I don't know if this has actually been rumored or not, but I think they're going to try and turn one of the upcoming Spider-Man movies, like Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, into just Kenyon Black. It would not surprise me. Of course, like this is all speculative, but it would not surprise me if Sony went to Marvel and was like, hey, you can like keep Tom Holland Spider-Man for a little bit more in your universe if you let us bring like maybe the other Spider-Man over and like Venom over to the MCU for this movie, and like maybe bring the Avengers in to do just a full Kenyon Black thing. It would not surprise me if that was kind of a deal that, if it hasn't already been worked out, will be worked out. But I think like the problem with that is he's not set up enough to make it satisfying for comic fans who know who this character is, for that to be a satisfying payoff in that movie. That's this, you know, speculative movie. But they also like, and then for people who don't know who Null is, they probably won't even remember he was in this. I like one of my coworkers who I saw it with was just like, yeah, I had no idea what the fuck was going on with that guy. Like his role made no sense in this to me. I'm like, yeah, because he doesn't do anything. Like I know who he is because I read comics, but like if you don't know who Null is, his role in this movie makes no sense. So yeah, that's kind of, I think that structurally makes the movie itself fall apart. And I think combined with the third act just not being great, it did sour me on this movie towards the end, which is a shame. I was going to actually be giving this a pretty positive review, and this is still like more positive than the previous Venom reviews that I have given. Although I don't think we ever actually uploaded any of our Venom reviews. In fact, we didn't even record a review for the first Venom. But like, yeah, they should have done more with Null. Kenyon Black again is like the only place they can go. Even though like Null literally he did not exist when the first Venom movie came out, so there was no way they had this plan from the start. He did technically exist when the movie released, but when they were working on his first appearance was in I think like June 2018, and the first Venom movie came out October 2018, so there was no way they like had planned this from the start. But also like real nitpick thing, this is not a huge deal, but it actually, as stupid as this will sound, it would have actually made me kind of forgive some of the stuff about this movie. There's a point right towards the start where the Science-y characters are talking to some symbiote host, and this you know, symbiote's talking about Null and how he's coming to Earth. And I was like, I was ready. I was waiting for them to say God is coming and do the quote from the original Null run, and they just never did, and that really disappointed me. Again, it's a very small nitpick. It should not affect my enjoyment of the movie at all, but it would have made my comic brain happy if I had heard that. They do say the Kenyon Black once, but they don't really lean into that much. So, yeah, overall, I think this is fine. I think, like, if you liked the first two Venom movies, I don't really see a reason why you wouldn't like this one. And actually, one of my other coworkers who I saw it with, he had never seen a Venom movie before, and he came away liking this one. So this is his first one, and he said, yeah, I had a good time with that. So, you know, like, I think in the minority when it comes to these movies of not really liking them that much, but I do think that this is the better of the three. Again, I still think, like, yeah, Spider-Man should be involved in this. Like, the whole Spider-Man universe of the Sony Pictures universe of Marvel characters, which is, again, real name. I'm not making that up. They might have changed it in recent months or years, but that was their name at one point, at least. Like, they should, like, it doesn't make sense to have all these characters running around without Spider-Man, but outside of that, I think, like, there's cool stuff that they could do with the story going forward, but I don't think it's set up in quite a way where I trust them to pull it off. Also, it's Sony, so I don't really trust them to pull it off. So yeah, I don't know. Again, potential is there, I think, but this did leave me feeling disappointed, and it wasn't kind of until the end where I felt that. So I would say I'd give it like a 6. That might be a little bit generous, but I think that feels right for where I'm sitting with it. But yeah, not amazing still, I don't think.
I mean, I've always said this about this movie. I thought them bringing Nolan was really dumb. I hate the fact that if they do plan on making a movie, it's only going to be like one. I think Nolan's way too big of a villain for them to just squeeze him into one movie.
That is a fear
Well,
I have as well. Yeah.
and like it makes sense if they make King in Black like a Venom-based movie because based off the main storyline of that whole run, it is mostly about
Yeah.
Eddie Brock, with other characters in there like kind of minorly, but yeah,
I do think they should introduce Miles before they do King in Black though, because he does play a role, a somewhat significant role in that story.
I mean, if you say that, you could say a lot of people played a significant role in that.
Yeah, I
movie.
mean, like fucking Captain America has a codex and stuff, so like
Black Cat had a fucking significant role in that
yeah,
series. Then like it's kind of it's tough to really decide.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know, man.
Well, that's the thing, because I was worried that they were maybe just going to try and do Null in this movie, and that was my concern, was that like, hey, one movie is not enough time to do Null in. And so when I kind of realized they were just setting him up for a future thing, I was like, okay, that might work actually, because then we'll get some setup, and then it'll feel more like a big deal when he comes back. However, they don't really do any setup with him here, so it'll still feel like he's just crammed into whatever movie he's in next. So I think that's still a concern. Yeah. All right, hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Earth. My name is Thomas, of the show where every episode we talk about some comics from the recent couple of months or so. Not months, weeks. Although it might turn into months with my fucking editing cadence right now. However, we are here, we're talking about some more comics. This is from the week of October 16th, these comics that we are talking about. And, yeah, it's kind of a lighter week in terms of volume, but it is kind of stacked in terms of, like, stuff. We got, like, new issues of Destro, Green Lantern, we got new issues of Ultimate Spider-Man, a new Titans run starting, a new Mystique series starting. Of course, my favorite series, Uncanny X-Men, is another issue this week. We're going to start off with, however, with the bigger kind of, I would say the biggest new number one of the week, at least on the big two side, which is Knight Fist of Khonshu, issue number 1, written by Jed MacKay, and the artist is Alessandro Cappuccio. So here's the thing about this one. It is an issue number 1, but it is still a continuation of Jed MacKay's Moon Knight run, which has been going for, I don't know, like 3-4 years at this point, I believe. So this is definitely like a continuation of that story, but also like a way better jumping on point than something like Vengeance of the Moon Knight is. Sebastian, for instance, jumped on with this issue.
Yeah.
And I think it's set up well enough that is something that's fine and you're able to just jump on here without much problem, I think. For me, the question I had going into this series was, where do we go from the end of Vengeance of the Moon Knight? Because I think that really capped off the series and the run broader and more broadly in a very satisfying way. It didn't really leave a lot of loose ends, and certainly like any loose ends that it might have left there did not get picked up in this issue. So for me, my question was, well, where do we go with this series and this run now that it feels like the kind of saga of the Midnight Mission and Mark's death and rebirth and this false Moon Knight? How do we then continue this forward and continue to do new stuff with it with the same writer? So this series, despite the fact that I like this run a lot and I'm happy to see it continue, I think this is one of the better solo series at Marvel. I was kind of wanting for this book to justify its continuation in this current, form after I feel like it wrapped up the series so well in the last issue. I don't really feel like it did that here. Don't get me wrong, I still like this, but I don't think it's breaking any new ground right now. Essentially, the plot here is that Mark is back. He's the figurehead of the Midnight Mission once again. And really all that happens here is that there's these two people who are kind of trying to, one of them is trying to get information on Moon Knight. We think it's just trying to like take him down because he's just like too much of a like lunatic vigilante. And so she's talking to this other guy who has kind of a history with Moon Knight. He's saying like, he's a force of nature. You don't mess with him. You get too close to him, he's going to fuck you up. And then so this is kind of intercut with Mark going into this, this person's like base of operations and beating up some of his henchmen, and this guy is like, he's selling drugs. It's like literal fairy dust, I think is what it is. And Mark's basically like, hey, you're selling these drugs in my territory, stop doing that or I will fucking kill you. And this guy is kind of, I will say, like, the one thing that I think is immediately very solid about this issue in particular is I think the new villain is charismatic. I think he's a really, maybe too early to say if he's interesting, but I think he's like a charismatic and like engaging to watch and to see his next moves. The way he talks is very specific, and I think that all is good. And so basically, like, Mark leaves and after his warning, and we find out that this guy, the drug dealer, is selling fairy dust to the person who was looking for information on Moon Knight in the first place, and she's actually working for him and is trying to still take him down, but for the purposes of this drug dealer. And that's all we really get in this issue. We don't see a whole lot of the Midnight Mission. It is mostly just focused on Mark, and then these couple of side characters that are kind of starting to like kind of rotate around him a little bit. And so like I think it's good. I liked it quite a bit. I think this is, Jed MacKay, I don't think he's great at team books, but I think he is very good at just solo series, where he can just really nail in on a particular character, really get their voice down and do some cool stuff with them. It is kind of interesting actually, because actually Moon Knight kind of is a team book a little bit, because the Midnight Mission like have gotten more involved as the series has gone on, but I think it's happened organically enough that it still feels manageable. So I do like this, definitely. But I do just wonder, again, like, I don't know if this issue really has anything that immediately sets it apart as being something like, oh yeah, this is really cool. I'm glad this run is still going, because this is a cool angle to carry this story forward that we haven't seen yet. I'm not feeling that yet. Maybe it will get there. I hope it does. But for now, I do think this is a little bit of just a kind of standard Moon Knight story. That's good for new readers, but I don't know if it really works as well if you've been following the series from the start.
Yeah, honestly, I know most of my like Midnight Mission. I know about most of that just from this podcast, besides that I probably would not have known nearly as much as I do. But so I'm kind of, I personally, as like jumping on, am more glad that they're focusing more on just Moon Knight rather than as a whole the Midnight Mission. So I can kind of like get acquainted with everybody. Like I know basically everybody. Like Hunter's Moon, I know, all these other people, I know about. But so yeah, I personally as glad as this new jumping on point they're only focusing on Moon Knight for now, at least. Like I would like for them to expand a bit on the Midnight Mission eventually, which I assume they will do, because considering that it's just part of, I feel like, Moon Knight at this point.
Yeah, the next issue, like the first line of the synopsis is the Midnight Mission reunited. So I'm sure and they're all on the cover for the next one. So we'll probably see more of them there.
No, yeah, exactly. But overall, so this first one, I thought this one was pretty good. It was certainly interesting. I figured I don't really think of much on it, honestly. Like as I was reading, you saw Mr. Knight, going and confronting this, drug lord about the fairy dust that's being sold in his, territory, essentially. And so then, so we kind of just get that confrontation. Then we get skipped to this other one in the diner between the two, like, well, what I believe was the ex-detective and then the now current detective, talking about Moon Knight himself. And then, we learn at the very end that the current detective trying to track down Moon Knight is actually working for that drug lord, and the fact that she's also addicted to fairy dust, and that's basically how she's getting fairy dust without payment, essentially, is just by dealing with Moon Knight. But yeah, I mean, honestly, not too much going on really yet, but for me, that's fine, as it's like a new jumping on point. They're just trying to get like a new storyline going here right now, while not bringing in too much like stuff from the old story yet. So I think that's fine. I think this is a good jumping on point. I think they did a good job of like not, oversaturating it too much with like basically anything. But I think this one was pretty good for new number one. You get used to Moon Knight being this character, and I thought this one was pretty alright. I'd give this probably an 8. I liked it. It was pretty good.
I am also going to give it an 8. I also liked it. I do think, again, I think the one thing I hope is that this starts to do some more unique stuff compared to the first run, because, Moon Knight fighting a drug lord that's pretty standard Moon Knight stuff. Yeah. I would like to see some kind of new stuff kind of creep in. Again, really like letting me know why this run is still going. Even though, again, like that makes it sound like I don't want this run to keep going. Again, to be very clear, I like this run overall a lot. I think it's been very good. I'm happy it's still going, but I do want them to kind of, start doing some new stuff with it in the upcoming issues.
Let's talk about possibly the worst thing I know I read this week. Avengers Assemble.
Okay, yeah. So this is what Sebastian made me read this week. I only read the first one, and so as a result, I'm only going to kind of talk about that first issue. And even then, I won't go into very much detail on it because Sebastian has already covered that issue. But yeah, Avengers Assemble #1. So the reason I did not pick this up when it dropped is because it's a Steve Orlando book. And as a general rule, I'm not a fan of Steve Orlando's writing. I actually don't think it's terrible. I think, and there's a lot of people who like his writing. That's fine. It doesn't, for whatever reason, it doesn't click with me. I think the problem I had with the first issue is that it was an incredibly, I feel, generic superhero story where we just had the Avengers B team fighting the Red Skull's daughter. The fight, I think, was like way drawn out. I think the stuff at the mansion with all the other Avengers popping up, that was fine. Actually, I didn't mind that. But the fight was, I think, really drawn out. And Red Skull's daughter, the entire time, was just like repeating the same dialogue over and over, being like, hate is all there is, and hate will consume you, and hate will always survive, and it will thrive in every part of the world because the human race is like a river, and hate, it flows through them, and they just get carried along by the current of hate. I was like, I fucking get it, man. Like, shut up. So, but I think ultimately, like, Steve Orlando books, I think the reason I am such a, generally not a fan of them is I think they combine kind of more generic storytelling with just really overwrought and just too much fucking dialogue. And I think that's very much the case here. There's too much dialogue in this issue. Like, some of his Scarlet Witch run is okay. I think I even talked about a few issues of that on this show towards the beginning of our podcast. I talked about a few issues of that, but I also may drop that for the same kind of reasons. So this, I really hated this issue, by the way. It doesn't really sound like it, but I fucking hated it. I am glad to hear that Sebastian also hated his, because it sounds like you will not be picking up the next issue, which is good, because it means that he will not make me read the next issue of this. And I'm very happy about that because I hated this. I gave it a 4.
Yeah. I actually didn't like overly mind the first one. Like I didn't rate it too high, but like I thought it was at least better than this one.
Yeah.
And
the villain of this one is I do know about this based on the cover and everything. It's the Red Ghost and the Super Apes. 2 like old Fantastic Four characters, like from the 60s, and they suck. I hate them so much.
Yeah, no, they still suck. It basically starts off with them in Avengers Mansion, and they're arguing over some like ginger snaps or something like that. And basically, that Hercules gets sees a call for like help essentially, and it's in this like town that starts with a K. It's genuinely a super complicated town name that I didn't even bother to remember. And basically, they're getting haunted by a bunch of ghost apes essentially. So the Avengers go over there and they start just beating on these ghost apes. Most of them can't actually hit them because they're ghosts, but Hercules can because he's a god or whatever. And Thrasher goes off and does his own thing, studying and figuring out. Is it Thrasher? Yeah, Thrasher.
Night Thrasher, yeah.
Yeah. He goes off and does his own thing, trying to figure out what the heck these ghost apes are and stuff like that. Basically, they figure out that like the Red Ghost has like basically moved into the neighborhood, and they think he's the one causing all this. So they go and he literally is like renting a house. And Captain America's just like, all right, Hercules, you're up. And he just destroys the house.
Oh my God.
And they discover just a basement. And so they go down there. They don't see him, but then Hawkeye and Cap are like, wait, he can turn invisible. So Hawkeye throws a flashbang down there. And there's the Red Ghost. And he's like, don't come any closer. I have a coagulation gun. I'll stop your blood when you take a step. And so they're basically just talking to him, essentially, like, all right, why are you doing this? And he's like, I'm not doing it. They're here to kill me. And they figure out that based off of like Hawkeye reading the lips of the super apes, basically figure out that they're like an old experiment of the Red Ghost and they want to kill him because the Red Ghost killed them. But I found this super dumb, right? Because Hawkeye, like in the comic like universe, he's like kind of hard of hearing. And I guess now in the MCU he is too. So like he's pretty good at reading lips. He couldn't read their lips, and it was actually Hercules that was doing all of the lip reading, which I found
have a real hard time saying lip reading, huh?
I really do. I don't understand why. I keep saying rip leading. I don't like that's not a word. I really don't understand.
No, it's not. We could make it one though.
I don't.
We're the rip leading podcast among comic fans.
I don't know why I want to keep saying rip leading. Lip reading. Yeah, literally, like it's Hawkeye and Hercules, and Hawkeye's like doing a horrible job, and then Hercules is just in the back. Like, it's actually this Hawkeye, and he's like, oh, you know what, you're right. It's like, what the fuck? Why? Just
Yeah.
have Hercules do it. Then what is the point? Yeah, basically they're like just mad at the Red Ghost and want to kill him, and so they basically, they're the Avengers. Literally, all of the Avengers are like, yeah, all right, that's fine with us, and the mayor's the one that's like, wait, hold on, I'm the mayor. We can't just let you kill this guy. And
Oh my God.
so Cap's like, okay, no, you know what? You're right. Apes, you can wail on him, just don't kill him. And so they just go to town on this man, and that's the end of it. Like, I was like, what the fuck did I just read?
Uh-huh.
It's so bad. It's genuinely like there was one. I will say there's one good part that has nothing to do with that story. It's actually with the people that are still at Avengers Mansion. It's between Wasp and Lightspeed, and basically Lightspeed is kind of feeling down at the fact that she hasn't been able to basically do any Avengers work because she feels like she has to like balance this and going to school. And so she's talking to Janet about like how Janet's like this just insanely talented person. Like she's able to like juggle like basically like her like I think she said she had like a clothing business, being a superhero. She's just like incredibly smart. Like she learned an alien language in the microverse and all this stuff. And Janet's basically like, you be the best version of you. That's why we like, that's the best you can be. Like I thought their conversation was like pretty good, but everything like that was like the main story was horrible. It was genuinely just so bad, and it felt like it dragged on and on to the point you're just like, I like why? I don't like what how is this an Avengers thing? Like genuinely. No, yeah, this was bad. Like genuine to the point I'm not gonna my three like, my 3 issue rule is it's getting chopped here. I'm not picking this up. It's actually the 4th one has Doom.
Yeah, so I did see that. I was going to mention that. Here's the thing with that. First of all, okay, here's the reason why I am not going to pick that up is because we now have an official, we know what the next event is officially. It's called One World Under Doom. It starts in February.
This is nothing to do with.
Yeah, Doom is in it probably, or maybe he's not. Actually, the synopsis makes it kind of unclear if he's even in the issue. But that issue will be in December, so that's before February. So I'm like, fuck it, man. No, I'm not picking that up. Otherwise, I will pick up all the One World Under Doom stuff, but not that one.
All right, yeah, I don't. Yeah, this is rough, man. I'm not. Yeah, honestly, like, no, I'm not gonna do it. I'm just not. I really can't. No, yeah, I really hated this one. This one was just, it was bad. It was so bad. I'm gonna give it like, I'm gonna give it like a 3, dude. Genuinely, it's bad.
Yeah.
Not like this.
It's interesting because apparently, like, according to League of Comic Geeks, the average score for issue number 2 is only 0.1 less than the average score for issue number 1. Next up, let's go and talk about let's do the new issue of Titans here.
Okay.
This is Titans number 16. New creative team as of this issue. It is now written by John Layman and the artist is Pete Woods. Okay, so if you've listened to some previous episodes where we've talked about Titans, we did not like the end of that run, the previous run. And to the point where I was very close to dropping it. Listen, this is better than the ending of that run. I definitely think it's better than the ending of that run. However, I still don't think this is actually all that great. Okay, here's the thing. Okay, so this one, it picks up right after the events of DC All In, where the Titans are now all members of the Justice League as well. They have their own wing in the Watchtower. They're still able to operate independently and do their own thing, but they are also, they're still like, they have their Watchtower wing so that they can be, centralized and there if the Justice League needs them. So, there's kind of a lot of back and forth stuff on the Watchtower. At some point, Gar accidentally kind of unleashes this Tamaranian like animal thing, and so they contain it again. But then the Question gets all pissed off at Gar and is like, "What the? You're endangering the Watchtower!" And then we have like the Titans go back to Titans Tower. This is a really weird nitpick to have, but like the scene where they all like walk up to the Watchtower, not the Watchtower, Titans Tower, it looks like really small. I don't know if that's just like if I'm going crazy, but the perspective looked way fucking off. I think the art generally is pretty good in this, but that was kind of the exception. I was like, what the fuck? So anyway, they all go. They're hanging out in Titan's Tower, and we kind of learned throughout the course of this issue that a couple members are not going to be sticking around. So like in particular, Wally leaves the team at the start of this issue, and then Dick also plans to leave the team. Roy Harper, Arsenal, he does join the team. But yeah, Dick's about to leave the team, and before he can, however, he kind of puts it up to a vote to make Donna the new leader, which everybody kind of goes along with. So Donna's the new leader of the Titans, and so, but before Dick can leave, they get their memories get like invaded, and they kind of keep having these like very intense flashbacks to some other moments in their life and stuff. And it kind of like knocks all of them out except for Donna. And we figure out that it's the Clock King for some reason, who is the one who's, I don't know why or how he's able to do that now. That didn't get explained at all, but that's fine. Like they mentioned that it's like Roy was the way that he was able to get to the Titans, but like they don't mention like why he can like hop into people's memories now and stuff. So, but regardless, then Donna's like, all right, all the other Titans are down, but I'm going to fuck you up myself then. And that's the end of the issue. So I think, I think, okay, I do think the broad strokes of this, I think structurally it is more sound than the end of the previous run. My main problem, I think, with this one comes from the dialogue. I think the dialogue is paced really weirdly. Like the way they're all kind of, the banter and the expository dialogue, it all feels really, really like just like too much. It's just like fucking blatantly beating you over the head with all this exposition. I don't think the banter is really in character either. Like not this kind of banter is not. It doesn't feel like in line with these versions of these characters. So yeah, the dialogue pacing is it's weird. I don't mind the fact that Clock King is the villain, I guess. It doesn't seem like he should be an issue for the Titans to beat at all. Like he's one guy who can just tell time really good, and the Titans are like fucking godlike beings, a lot of them. So that, I mean, but like obviously, of course, they're probably going to, they've probably given him a power up and stuff. But I do think actually, like, I was hoping that this would like really blow me away and wow me. I am still on the verge of dropping this series, actually. It's not as bad as the previous ones, and I will give it at least one more issue, but I think if next one doesn't do it for me, I probably will just say fuck it and drop this. So, again, better than the end of Tom Taylor's run, absolutely, but I don't think it's not off to an amazing start for me right now.
No, I agree with you. I thought this one was, like, all right at best. I don't know. Yeah, it's alright at best, honestly. The fact that they chose Clock King to be like the first villain when they come back is interesting. I'll say that, to say the least. Especially after we like saw a bunch of him in the last event. Forgetting the name, Absolute Power. There it is. What else? Yeah. Okay. Was Dick leaving or was he just transferring leadership? I thought he was just transferring leadership. He was still going to be on the team, just to give it a fresh perspective.
Maybe. I don't know. It sounded to me like he was just gonna try and focus on his own personal stuff. But to be fair, like, he's on the cover of the next 3 issues, so you're actually probably right about that.
Okay, yeah. Wally leaving makes sense. I don't know. I'm not up with the Flash, so I didn't know Barry. Oh, maybe that was part of the whole thing of the Absolute Power, how Barry doesn't have powers anymore. Yeah, and then what was the other guy left? The one that was part of Atlantis.
Oh, Tempest, right. But he's not actually in the issue. They just kind of talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all off panel.
Yeah. I thought, so the scene in the Watchtower with Beast Boy, I thought that was a bit weird. It kind of shows that, like, still people don't truly trust Beast Boy, And it's not just, like, civilians, it's just heroes in general. But that could just be the question.
Yeah, this is also, I'm pretty sure this is a new version of the question as well.
Yeah. I think they are just like that. That's their character, that they just, like, don't trust anybody, maybe. But it could just be, because she also does mention the fact that Beast Boy doesn't have, like, good track record with turning into aliens.
Yeah.
Which, obviously is referencing Beast World and stuff like that. But, yeah, so I don't know if it was just the fact that, like, that's her character, or if it was just the fact that, like, they're trying to show that, like, people still don't truly trust Beast Boy in that sense. And then, so there was that. Roy, which I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna like his character at all.
I usually do, but he's kind of being a pain in the ass
Yeah.
in this already.
And then the fact that he's Donna Troy is gonna be like the new leader. I don't mind that. I like her
Yeah.
as a character, so I don't mind that. We've seen Starfire be leader. We've seen obviously Dick be leader.
Yeah, I was gonna say Starfire or Donna are the most qualified to be leader outside of Dick.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah. So I we'll see that. Art wise, I don't mind it. There's a couple panels here and there where I'm just like, what have they drawn? Like,
yeah, it's a little bit
specifically,
cartoony, but I don't really mind it.
Yeah, it's just some scenes with like faces. I'm just like, what the hell have they drawn here? But yeah, it's definitely it's very different from our last art style for this series, I'd say. But yeah, I think this it's fine. We'll see how it is going on. I don't mind dropping this at this point, considering how the after that last one how it ended. So I wouldn't mind dropping this, but I'm gonna, we're gonna wait and see how it fares going forward. But yeah, I think this one was fine. Honestly, I'd give it. God, what did I give it? What would I give it? I'm gonna give it a 7. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 7.
I'm giving it a 6. I was kind of hovering between 6 and 7, but ultimately, again, dialogue pacing was fucking strange to me, and that's ultimately what kind of dropped at it, because I think the pacing of the dialogue was just all over the place and just felt really unnatural because of that. So yeah.
All right, I'm gonna talk about Blood Hunters #3 here. Okay, what can I say?
Would have liked to have read that instead of Avengers Assemble this week.
Yeah. All right. Writer Eric Schultz, artist Robert Gill. Man, what can I say about this one? This one was just a big battle one. It was the Blood Hunters versus the Blood Coven, and they're. Oh man, what can I say about this? They're basically having trouble against the Blood Coven because they brought an army of vampires. And so it's just them, 5 technically. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5. Well, 6, including if you include the cat. The cat doesn't really do anything. So I'm gonna say 5. It's basically them 5 versus hundreds of vampires. And so they're having trouble and stuff like that. Hollow's Eve gives White Widow a mask of hers to use to overpower the vampires. Dagger basically overexerts herself and shines. She shines like the sun and kind of makes them retreat, but in doing so, I don't know, no, she got hurt last issue, I think, and so that kind of made it worse for her. And so basically she was able to push the vampires back. So Miles is like, all right, I'll swing her to the nearest hospital, and as he's doing that, he gets ambushed by the Blood Coven again, and it ends with them being like, oh, we'll take Dazzler off your hands. The entire thing was it was very short. It was super quick. It was just a battle scene and nothing of worth talking about at all, actually. And yeah, it's there. I actually did not really like this one at all. I thought it was just very boring to read for me. It was not interesting at all. It was just overall boring. Art style was same as always. It was fine, I think, but yeah, this is boring. I'm not gonna lie, nothing interesting going on at all. So I'm gonna give it a 5.
Are you gonna keep going with this series?
Considering there's 2 left, I am.
Okay.
Just to see how it ends.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't like this one that much. It was very boring.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's wrap up Daredevil: Woman Without Fear, Sebastian.
All
here.
right.
This is Daredevil: Woman Without Fear, issue number 4, written by Erica Schultz, with 2 artists credited, Ivan Fiorelli and Michael Dowling. This is the final issue of the series. They are doing another miniseries of Daredevil, Elektra Daredevil, starting in January, called Daredevil Unleash Hell. That is a Red Band series from the same writer. At this point, Erica Schultz has done, I think, 3 Elektra Daredevil series. Just give her a fucking ongoing at this point. If you're gonna keep doing these miniseries. But okay, outside of that, regardless, I didn't like this. This was bad, I think.
I didn't like this either.
Yeah, this was real bad. I promise there's a lot of good stuff this week. We're just not talking about any of it yet. But yeah, so I kind of last issue, I talked a lot about how I felt like the fact that Alice was still in Hell's Kitchen kind of made the whole thing feel pointless because that kind of just made the whole thing be kind of a wild goose chase. I still feel that way, but I think the bigger problem here is it's paced terribly. Like the whole, and actually, by the way, Sebastian completely called this. I was just editing the section of us talking about this the last issue not too long ago. Sebastian was like, I don't think they're even going to fight that much. I think that they're just going to fight for like a little bit, and then they're going to team up and then just go and take down the Magia together. And you were 100% spot on. That's exactly what happens in the Elektra Punisher side of this. So I mean, yeah, like they fight for a little bit. It's a really bad fight, and then they just kind of take out a whole bunch of Magia goons. They try and take down Count Nefaria and Silvermane, but they both get away, so they don't manage to do that. Then the other side of it is Alice. Her house gets broken into. I guess her aunt's house gets broken into. And her aunt just like was, I guess, like a secret agent or something in a previous career and just beats him up. And that's kind of that. And then Elektra goes back and says hi to Alice and is like, and Alice is just suddenly like, despite the fact that it looked like she had been like kidnapped by her aunt in the last issue, she's just suddenly cool with living with her now. I'm like, what the fuck? Okay. So now like this has completely reshaped the entire like point of this series. Mm-hmm. At first, I thought it was kind of all there to get this version of the Punisher kind of back into the Marvel comics, have him face off with Elektra, kind of bring him into the mainstream a little bit more. And like it kind of did do that, but I thought like the main point was to have them kind of fight. And they had like one real fight in issue number 2, which was fine. But even at the time, I was like, I kind of hope this is not the only fight because it was, again, fine, but it wasn't much of a fight. It was just kind of a very one-sided thing. This issue, it's even less of a fight. Like, they don't even really fight at all. So now that feels kind of like fucking nothing. And considering that the only reason they fought at all was because of this whole, like, red herring thing where, you know, Elektra got sent to Madripoor because she thought Alice was there. It just, again, makes the whole series feel even more pointless. Now it feels like the only real purpose this series served was to just get rid of Alice. And it's just like, okay, so then, like, again, why did this exist? Again, that sounds very harsh. I don't mean it that way. Like, I don't have a problem with this series existing. I think the first half was solid, but it's just like it seems like there was no real point to this series now in terms of what it did with its plot. And because of these last 2 issues, it just feels very disorganized and like there's kind of too much stuff going on and they're focusing on the wrong parts of that. So yeah, this was weird and bad. I didn't like it. I think the pacing was bad. I think they just kind of, here's the other thing about this. There were a lot of plot points in this series, right? We had the Magia stuff. We had just, we had the Alice stuff. We had, for some reason, like, I don't know why there was like a spy trying to take down Alice. I that was very strange to me as well. Like, what the fuck was even the point of that? Elektra versus, Punisher, the stuff going on with Silvermane and Nefaria. Like, there was kind of a lot of stuff to get through. And I do think, I remember saying, like, I was kind of worried that we were going to have it be rushed. I don't know if rushed is the right word, but it definitely does not feel like they concluded in a satisfying way. Because I feel like instead of like concluding naturally, it just feels like the plot points just end. Like they end with no real resolution, it feels like, even though they technically do get resolved. So yeah, not good. Also, like the fact that there are 2 artists on this issue, that was the case last issue as well. I didn't notice it there. I very much noticed it here. It was like really fucking weird. Because it seemed like random pages would just be a different artist who had a very different art style. And so that was like really jarring as well. So yeah, not a good issue. It's kind of a shame because I think it did start strong. If I was not, so invested in Daredevil, I would not be picking up the next series from Elektra Daredevil. But yeah, this just did not do it for me and makes me much less interested to see what this Red Band Unleash Hell book will be like.
Jesus. All right. Yeah, this one, like, literally, it was between this one and the last one. It just completely undid everything, like the whole point of this series. Like we had said, it's like literally the last issue. But it really felt like that's this issue. Like it's just like, oh yeah, I wasn't captured. It's just my aunt took me in, and I'm gonna stay with her now. It's just like, the fuck was the point of all of this?
Yeah,
bro? Like,
it makes the scene in the last issue where she's like trying to call Elektra from the bathroom and like hiding it from her aunt. Now it's like, why the fuck did that even happen? Like
genuinely. Just be like, yeah, I'm with my aunt, and yeah, I'm gonna stay with her now. Like, boom, that's it, bro. Like, I also don't understand why the aunt was like forbidding her from talking to Elektra. It's like, Just let her call her, and like we could avoid everything. Like, just fucking what the hell?
I think that's more just a thing because like Elektra is a fucking murderous ninja. She's not anymore, of course, but she was, and I think she's just
Yeah.
like, I don't want you really having anything to do with her.
No, like I understand that, but like literally, like Elektra was fine with Alice leaving. It's just like I don't. We could have like avoided like all of this if I mean, again, makes sense. She was a murderous ninja. Like the aunt is probably just like being cautious and shit like that.
Yeah, and the
Like,
aunt probably doesn't know that Elektra would be fine with Alice leaving as well. The aunt probably thinks that Elektra like kidnapped Alice.
yeah, exactly. So it's like, I don't know. This one really undid everything, and the whole like cover very misleading. That their fight was, you couldn't even call it a fight. She like last issue, she got knocked off her bike by Punisher. He literally lifted up, she kicked his legs out from under him, and then the Magia came and interrupted them. Like it wasn't a fight, like at all. And then Punisher, this new Punisher, like basically being like super egotistical, being like I can just kill everybody like by myself, and Elektra's being like, no, you can't. Like, you
Yeah,
can work with me here.
he
And
sucks in this. Like, I
he's
don't remember him being this
awful.
annoying in his
He's horrible as a new Punisher
miniseries.
right now. You know,
Yeah,
like his character is just so off. And yeah, the Magia themselves, like Count Nefaria and like Silvermane, I genuinely don't understand why they were in this series.
yeah, I don't either.
Pointless. They could have just had a bunch of henchmen and it would have been fine. Like you didn't have to throw them in there. And yeah, I think this one just went downhill because I really liked the first two, and then the last two were just not that good at all. Especially this fourth one. This fourth one was for me the worst out of all of them. But yeah, I mean I really like Electro Daredevil. Honestly, I'd say more than regular Daredevil. I hate his series right now. I find it so fucking tedious. And so I actually really enjoy her character. So yeah, I mean I plan on reading more of her like her solo series for sure. But yeah, we'll see. I did not enjoy the ending for this one. I loved the beginning, hated the ending. But if that's just how her miniseries are gonna be, I might just not. Well, I don't know. I love her characters. I might just pick it up anyway. But I'll hate it as I read it. So I don't know. Yeah, I give this one a 5.
Yeah, I'm also giving this a 5. Not great.
All right, moving on here. Let's talk about some Image comics, specifically Destro.
This is Destro at number 5. So I'm assuming you got caught up on this then, right? Because you were like, what, 2-3 issues behind at this
I
point?
was 3 issues behind. I had to read
Yeah.
3 issues of this. Yeah.
So this is the finale of Destro and the kind of last step to set up the new G.I. Joe series, specifically the Cobra side of this. And I will say, like, I definitely think this does a better job of setting up the Cobra side of the G.I. Joe series than Scarlet did finishing up setting up the G.I. Joe side. That had like nothing to do with that. But this does really much feel like, okay, the formation of Cobra is complete now, so we can get into the G.I. Joe stuff. So yeah, it's written by Dan Waters. The artist is Andre Bresson. I have been kind of back and forth on this series a little bit. I think it's good, definitely, and I've overall liked it. But I think, given 3 of the previous 4 issues a 7, and I gave one of them a 9. So it's like it's kind of ranged between being like solid but not amazing to being like just straight up like goated, single issue. I think I gave it the pick of the week when issue 2 dropped. So I think this is a great conclusion, actually. I think this is a really, really good way to wrap this series up. Picks up where the Crimson Twins have, they've taken over, they've bought Mars Industries from Destro's cousin, who, also is the ruler of Darklonia. So they've bought Mars Industries. They're kind of having a meeting with Cobra Commander, and then they walk into this room, and Destro's like, "What's up, fuckers? I'm still here, and I'm gonna kill you guys now." And what follows is a really, really cool action sequence where like Mars Industries and the Crimson Twins, like they have all this firepower, they have all these people working for them, like they have this huge army, but we see that like they have become complacent and just kind of, because of how much power they have, they've just kind of been like, yeah, they've kind of gotten cocky and feeling like they just kind of are on top and can't be taken down. And then so, we have the other side of it where Destro has like 3 people plus the orbital system that like, the AI thing that like clocks threats and then tries to take them down. So like, we just see like they're planning and they're so like meticulously, constructed their plan to the point where, it runs like such a well-oiled machine. They're on all fronts. They just kind of take down tech and people like nothing. It's really cool just to see them kind of have this multi-pronged, attacking front on Mars Industries was really cool. Destro and the Crimson Twins have a bit of a punch up, and then Destro is about to kill the Crimson Twins and is like, I forgive you. And then he's just like, all right, we can all work with Cobra Commander and we can all kind of, form Cobra together. And Cobra Commander's like, you have impressed me, Destro. And so they kind of all leave, like, there's still definitely some tension there, but they leave kind of having had both of their companies and both of their kind of, tech dynasties kind of combined under the banner of Cobra. Again, uneasy alliance, but still an alliance regardless. And then Destro shoots a nuke and blows up the defense system thing. So then we also have, like, in that point where the debris from the defense system is falling, we also see like a chunk of something falling from Cybertron. I'm assuming that is the part of Cybertron that fell in Transformers, is my guess. Yeah, so then Cobra Commander's like, ooh, Cybertron, will you have more gifts for me? And the other thing is there's another part of, like, brief epilogue where Destro goes to confront his cousin for selling Mars Industries to the Crimson Twins, and he does the whole, like, he does the Clan Destro thing where he, like, sears the mask onto him because he's like, you fucking, like, turncoat, you sold Mars Industries when I gave you this country. I'm gonna now put this, hot mask on you like the first Destro so you can, like, wear that forever. That was sick, man. That was super cool. Again, like, thematically bringing that back into focus. That was super cool. I loved this issue. This was great. This was a genuinely great conclusion to the series. This series is not my favorite overall from the G.I. Joe lineup, but I think that this does have the highest points of the G.I. Joe miniseries so far, but I also think it has some of the lower points. So overall, like, solid series, man. Like, really solid series. Dan Waters is a very good writer. Like, I'm very confident that his Nightwing run will be good after reading this as well. He also, obviously, he did the Six Fingers earlier this year, which was really good. So, like, he's a very solid writer. I think he did a very, very solid job with this book. Again, not all of it worked for me, but I really liked some of the more creative stuff done with structure and the thematic stuff that came back into play, plot points that were really, brought back into focus. Like, it all felt purposeful. And I really appreciated that. And then this was a sick ass ending. So yeah, I really like this issue.
No, yeah. I mean, I might blur the lines here a bit between the third, the fourth, and this fifth one a little bit. But for the most part, I really like this one. The ending, I think they did a great job with the ending of actually setting everything up compared to, like, some of the other ones that we've read. Mostly Scarlet, Cobra itself, honestly, as well. I felt like the ending was a bit lackluster, especially being like the main Cobra book. And then so yeah, I think they did a great job of setting this one up actually, and showing how Destro finally actually, like, works with Cobra Commander. Because at first, when at the end, I don't remember which one specifically it was, which series it was where Cobra first approaches Destro. I think that was that the end of Duke? I don't remember.
No, that was the end of Cobra Commander.
It was the end of Cobra Commander? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
See, but, like, at that point, it was just, they're working together only in, like, based off of their businesses. It wasn't like specifically Destro was working for Cobra Commander. And this one, that's how basically it ends. Is Destro's like, yeah, I'm with you guys now. Like, I want to work under you, and stuff like that. And it's Mars Industries, and I forget what the twins'
yeah, I don't know.
I forget. But yeah, so he recommends they work under him too. You don't really hear their answer, but I assume they do. And so, yeah, I think this did a great job of actually setting up Cobra Commander itself. At the beginning of the series, I didn't think that's what they were going to end up doing, honestly. But yeah, I think it came to a really great end, especially with Destro kind of, like, learning about everything because of his connections to, I think his name is General Flag, which is, like, the head of, like, the G.I. Joe group.
Yeah, right.
I think that was in the fourth one, if I'm not mistaken.
Third or fourth, I don't know which. Yeah,
it was one of those two. Yeah. He like, he got a bunch of, like, files that are never supposed to see the light of day or shit like that, and he basically just, like, learned a bunch about, like, Cobra Commander and, like, about just a bunch of things. Like, he's learned about, like, how the Transformers are a thing now, and just, yeah, he just learned a bunch of things, and he realized, like, the best way to basically stay in businesses to just join Cobra Commander. There was the whole bit with the satellite thing. That satellite kind of reminded me of the latest Mission Impossible movie, honestly. How it's like an AI thing that can like just predict everything and just like is acting on its own and whatever. Yeah, for the most part, I thought this one was actually really good. I thought that they ended it really great. They did a really good job with the ending. For me as a series as a whole, the middle felt a little bit lackluster. Honestly, it was specifically like the ending of 2, most of 3, and like a little bit of 4. I was like, I'm not like too like into this series, but I think they did such a good job with this one that overall I'm thinking very highly of the series. But yeah, I think they just did a really good job with this one, and so I'd give it honestly I'd give it an 8. I really like this one.
I'm going to give it a 9. I was kind of hovering between 8 and 9, but I think it just did enough to squeeze out that 9th star from me. So, yeah, very, very, very solid stuff all around. Okay, let's do Department of Truth now.
All right.
Which is what I made Sebastian read. So, I'm assuming you only read one of these again.
I read number 4.
All right. Well, as always, I will throw to you to give your thoughts on number 4 before I talk about number 26.
Yeah, number 4 was basically mine was pretty easy to summarize. It's gonna be pretty easy to summarize. It's basically the fact that Lee finally told our main character, whose name I don't remember, I can never remember.
It's Cole.
It's Cole.
Yep.
He basically told Cole like specifically what they do at the Department of Truth, whilst like spying on this reporter and like his editor.
That's that issue. Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, basically he finally tells him like what they actually do there and like how to think whilst he's working for the Department of Truth. Like Lee told Cole how to like think differently. He has to think differently, and he explained how he has to think whilst working for the Department of Truth, because a bunch of these like other people, like the masked lady, the lady with like not masked lady, it's the black mask, and then like the lady with like the Patrick eyes or something like that, cross eyes or something like that.
Babylon, yeah,
her. Like he mentioned like 2 others, I believe. I just don't remember specifically, but it was he mentioned mostly about the Black Mask and how he based his like that one specific goal is to basically bring down the Department of Truth, and that's why they were spying on this reporter and their editor, because essentially towards the end they figured out that the Department of Truth exists, and so what Lee makes Cole do is basically they were going to come to the room they were in, and Cole had to like kill them essentially, whilst Lee was basically in the same room but just like behind a hidden thing, and he'd just be like monitoring them to make sure Cole actually did it. And so yeah, basically that's how it ends. They knock on the room door, Cole answers, they start asking him questions about stuff, and it ends with them asking like, just like, we don't like, basically it's like the reporter, they don't want this story to get out either. And in the end, the last question they ask is like, we just want to make sure, are you guys the good guys? And Cole turns around with the gun and like crying and says, I think so, and kills them both. And a very great art style too, by the way. You just see like as he's shooting them, you just see 4 panels. One dark with Lee, just like straight face, and then there's another panel with it just like the flash bang of the gun, and then another dark panel, and then the second flash bang of the gun, and then that's how it ends. I thought that was such a good use of the art style there. I absolutely love that scene. But yeah, it's pretty simple overall. I actually quite enjoyed this one. I feel like it wasn't too convoluted. I just, man, there's so much to read these ones, man. They take so much time for me to read and get.
Yeah, it's a lot of exposition.
Understand them. But yeah, I actually quite liked this one. I thought this one was very straightforward, and the way he like explained to Cole how they have to think and stuff actually made sense to me for once with this series. So yeah, I actually quite enjoyed this one, and so yeah, I'd give this one an 8 as well. Actually, I like this one.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about Department of Truth number 26, written by James Tynion IV. We do not have our series regular artist of Martin Simmons on this issue. It is instead Allison Sampson, who has done a couple issues of this series in the past. Her art, it's very different than Martin Simmons, but I think it's very good as well. And this issue absolutely fucking rules. So I kind of thought, this is the start of a 2-issue kind of mini arc revolving around Marilyn Monroe. And I thought that this was going to be like another wild fiction kind of thing, where it's not really connected to the main story, just kind of taking a bit of a, a bit of a sidestep, doing a different side story, and then eventually going back to the main story later on. But no, this is very much tied into the main story. Essentially, it's pretty simple. I don't know. It's the director of the Department of Truth. This is before Lee became the director. He sends this one guy basically to Marilyn Monroe to kind of under the pretense of being like her bodyguard. But it's really to kind of keep an eye on her, because as we find out in this issue, it seems like she is not real. Like, she herself is a wild fiction that has somehow been kind of created through this, thing of collective belief. But it kind of gets a little bit more sinister than that, because that's already like, okay, that's kind of a big deal. Again, kind of looping into the fact that last issue we kind of found out that Lee himself might be like a wild fiction. He might be a being that has been created through through collective belief. And it seems like that's kind of where it's going with this issue with Marilyn Monroe. However, there's a point where she's talking to the Department of Truth guy, and she says something, I don't quite remember what it is, but she looks in the mirror. I think she says, like, sometimes I don't even feel like I'm real myself. She looks in the mirror, and in the mirror, it's not her, it's Babylon. It's the lady in red. And it's creepy as hell, man. It's like really, really creepy. So that ruled. And that's kind of where the issue ends, is that she's just kind of talking to the Department of Truth guy after that, and is like, so, like, I guess you're going to hang out here for a little bit and stuff. Oh, right. That's the other thing, is because, yeah. So it's not so much that she felt like she might not have been real, although it seems like she might be like possessed by Babylon, or like a vessel for Babylon or something. But what it was is that kind of, this was back in that period where everybody thought she was having, or that JFK was having an affair with her. And so she, like, straight up didn't, but because of, again, this collective belief thing, she now actually does remember actually having that affair with JFK, even though she knows she didn't do it. But then these memories are being kind of filled in there. So that's kind of where that collective belief thing is being implemented there. And then, yeah, it turns out that, yeah, Babylon might be Marilyn Monroe, or is, possessing her or something, or is like using her form, or maybe just watching her even. So it was sick. It was a really cool issue that actually does, like, do stuff with Babylon, continuing this, development of the collective belief thing, where we are kind of getting more information on that and how it can kind of escalate even beyond just what we've seen already. So all of that was really cool. Again, very great art, very unique, very different from the rest of the series art. But this being kind of a even though it is kind of looped into the main story, it being set in the past and kind of being aside, at least temporarily aside from the main story for now. I think the art, being so different does work for that. So yeah, great issue. I think I'm also going to give this a 9. Not my pick of the week, but very close. It was very good.
All right. Let's talk about Wonder Woman.
All right. This is Wonder Woman 14, written by Tom King, and the artist is Daniel Sampere. Okay, so we are back on track with the series after having taken a bit of a break for the Absolute Power stuff. This one, I'm not going to get too in depth on the kind of description of what this issue is, because it is very kind of bouncing around all over the place. The broad strokes of what happens in this issue is that Sovereign kills Steve, and so it's a lot of Diana mourning him.
Yeah.
And then ultimately leading to she manages to, like, go to, like, limbo and has a conversation with Steve as he's kind of passing over to death. And from that, and then once she, like, kind of steps out of that, area and back to, the physical world, she then ends up creating her daughter, Trinity. This is how we see the origin of Trinity, from sand on the beach, and, like, imbuing her with some personality stuff. That is actually basically all that happens from a plot perspective in this issue. I think here's the thing with this issue. I don't love this. I have not loved this run. I think it's interesting, but I think the plot itself can kind of get away from itself here and there. I think by far what works the best about this run, and this issue in particular, is the structure. And I'm not even talking about the structure of the run as a whole, by the way. I'm talking about the structure of each individual issue, because they're also structurally interesting, with some exceptions. Like, I think the Absolute Power tie-ins kind of didn't do this as much, but one of them did, but the other two didn't. I think the way that each issue is structured is very unique, and it's in a way that is not seen often in the comic world. We don't see this kind of experimentation with structure very often. And so I think from that perspective, I do appreciate some of the stuff the series goes for. Here it's bouncing around, like, with some exceptions. For most of this issue, each page is a different day. And it's kind of, for the first half in particular, kind of jumping around like forwards and backwards. So we're seeing like Steve gets shot, then we'll flash back to before he got shot, then we'll jump ahead to after he got shot, then kind of flash back to the day he got shot. And then, towards the back half, it does get a little bit more linear in terms of how those days are laid out. And then when you have the conversation between Diana and Steve in like Limbo, that is all just, that's in sequence as a normal, kind of comic conversation would be. So I think the structure is really interesting. The art's amazing. And I just really, I think, again, like the way this is jumping between days and stuff, that's what I think is the best part of this issue. I think the structural conceits of a lot of these issues are what makes this series, like, that's the reason I'm still reading this series. Otherwise, I would have dropped this probably. Where this does not work for me, though, I'm at the point where I'm not into the way that Diana and Steve's relationship is being characterized. Like, their dialogue is just so, like, over the top, overly saccharine, to the point where I just, like, am rolling my eyes reading some of it. It's not terrible, but I just find it like too much. Like, it's too over the top in that respect. And I think that was highlighted the most in the previous issue, where Damian was trying to help all the other superheroes break out of Gamora, and like Steve and Diana were just making out the whole time, like stuff like that's like, come on, man. Like, this is like, they're both too professional, I feel, for that sort of stuff to happen. And I just think their dialogue is just, it's too much in points. And I think that is, this issue is very much focused around, their kind of relationship. I liked the parts of Diana grieving and mourning Steve. I think that was good. And I didn't even hate the Sovereign narration in this. I think that was also fine.
Oh, good, you didn't.
No, that didn't bother me as much in this one. But yeah, I just think like the relationship between Steve and Diana is just not really working for me as much anymore, to the point where I'm kind of happy that Steve is dead. Like, if it means they're going to kind of separate those two for a little bit. So I don't know. It's fine. But without the structure of this issue being so interesting, I think I would have liked this a lot less.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I didn't mind this one. I actually liked the whole mourning process, like seeing the whole mourning process of Diana. Like, I think this was very good. Like, especially like when the Justice League was like involved, just seeing like her talking to like technically like Clark and Bruce specifically, because they were in like their just like normal civvies essentially. Just her them just approaching her, and she just instantly realizing why they approached her. I thought that was pretty good. I am still not a fan of the whole narration of the Sovereign. Genuinely, it just feels like he's telling the story, and I'm not liking it right now. Like, I don't mind it when he's like specific. I just, oh no, I genuinely, I don't really like it.
I
feel
think
like
I might have just settled into it. Yeah, I think I might have just settled into it, because I remember that being a huge point of criticism for this series from me in like issue 5 or something. I remember really hammering that home. So I don't know if I've just settled into it or if it's actually better here, but I didn't have that problem with this issue.
I think he's just super over the top with the narration, like narrating literally every little thing. Like, her eyeball twitch is like, what the I don't need, like, give me a break, bro. You didn't need to, like, I just think he's super over the top with it. But overall, like, I think seeing her, how she mourns and stuff like that, and I think this was like in that sense, it was very good. I feel like their Wonder Woman and Diana and Steve's like relationship in like the past like couple issues that we've seen them together, I feel like they were like super over, like you were saying, like super over the like overly romantic. And I think that was just them, like the creators, just trying to hammer it in to try and make us feel more like sad about his death in this issue, which at that point I don't understand why they would do that. They could have just built it up over time rather than just hammering it in, like super like overly hammer it in, like in like the past like 3 issues we've seen.
See, to be honest, I actually think that was played for laughs in the past couple issues. I think they were trying to just make that a joke, which I think didn't work. As that's part of the reason why it didn't work for me, because it just was like, this does not feel in character for these characters at all.
Well, exactly. That's I was like, I just like at that point, because obviously they knew they were gonna kill off Steve Trevor. Obviously they planned this shit like so far in advance. So I feel like it was just like, okay, we gotta get people to feel bad now. I'm just like, you didn't really have to. Like, we understand how much Diana loves Steve and how much he loves Diana. Like, I don't think you had to hammer it in that much. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I didn't mind the whole story behind this one. I hated the narration. I still don't like it. But the overall story I actually really liked. Seeing just Diana and her mourning process. and seeing like Superman and Batman go to like her like the other Wonder Woman people like Donna Troy and the two Wonder Girls,
Yeah.
and see like them being like the closest people to Diana essentially, besides them two, besides Superman and Batman, and just seeing them be like, listen, we don't know anything, she hasn't told us anything, so you already know what that means, and them just being like, yep, we do. But yeah, so yeah, birth of her baby from the gods and whatever. I don't know what was that whole bit with like the string thing that like Diana stole the string and that whole like.
Yeah, I think that was something to do with like her and Steve. Maybe I don't really know. Yeah, I kind of forgot about that. But yeah, she turns it into like a Wonder Woman string, and then there's like now I think that's like the soul or like the personality of the baby or something that she like imbued into the sand or something. I don't know.
Because it was like a blue and red string.
Yeah, then it turned gold.
Like her lasso.
Yeah.
So I don't know like significance of that string. Like I don't know who those people were that were trying to find the string that she had like taken, like the actual like roll of the string. I really don't. I didn't understand that bit at all. I assume it's obviously it's got some importance if she's using it to create her baby. But yeah, overall, I think this one would be, I would rate this a lot higher if it wasn't for the narration. I'm not gonna lie. I hated it so much. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a 7.
I think I'm gonna give it a 6. I'm back and forth between 6 and 7. I think again the structure
You're gonna rate
of this
it
issue
lower
is
than me.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I think the structure of this issue is the only thing that makes it interesting, and I think like because of that, like it would probably be a 5 for me if not for the structure being as interesting as it is. So I thought about giving it a 7. I thought I was kind of going to, but yeah, I don't know if I really can when all I really could latch onto was the structure. I think I'm gonna do let's do Green Lantern here. I think this is written by Jeremy Adams. The artist is Hermonico. Okay, so what I do remember of this is that it's a fucking all-out war between the Green Lanterns that are kind of the rebel Green Lanterns, I guess, Hal's bunch, and then the ones that are kind of still loyal to Tharos and his kind of whole group. So this feels like a really big kind of conflict. Apparently, it's only going on for 3 issues. So I'm a little bit concerned about how this will kind of develop overall. But I think, as far as this issue goes on its own, I think it's quite good still. I really like, we get right at the start. First of all, the art's amazing throughout this whole thing. That is kind of what I think is partially carrying this. But we get like Mogo just straight up destroys Thanagar right at the start. And, the Green Lanterns, they're able to get some of the Thanagarians off the planet, but a lot of them die. So then it's basically like they're kind of engaged in this like ship battle. And so Hal and John kind of go off and try to hold off the lanterns and stuff while Carol and the people on the ship try to fix the ship and get it out of there. And I know the Star Shroud is involved. This kind of did clarify a little bit about the Star Shroud for me, because now I realize that he's Varan, who was one of the Revenant Queen's like minions. He was the former Green Lantern, one of the Revenant Queen's minions at the start of War Journal that then kind of got turned into Star Shroud, I guess. So that shed some light on that. That's good. But then outside of that, I don't really remember what else happened, because it was kind of a blur for me, a lot of this.
No, pretty straightforward, genuinely. Thanagar destroyed. Hal, John, and Carol were on like one of the last remaining. I think it was like the only remaining ship. I don't truly know, but it was like I'm gonna say one of the last remaining ships that were actually fleeing Thanagar. Hal and John got out to like buy them time while Carol repaired the engine so they could actually like light speed out of there. And it was just basically them versus like the army of like other Green Lanterns. The Star Shroud showed up at one point to try and to obviously try and stop them. It was the other people that were the blue people that were like evil that were I always forget their species. Who was Tharos?
The Durlans, I believe.
Them. They were basically in their spaceship. Essentially being like, this is the plan, this is what we got to do. And then, Carol gets the spaceship out of there. Hal and John are going to go back to Oa. And then on Oa, it's basically like nothing happened, nothing new happened over there at all. It's just Lars Flees is still on a rampage. they reiterated, like, what are we going to do with him? And basically they're like, all right, we got to hightail it out of here before the others realize that he's just a distraction. They free a couple of other people, and they fly out of there, and we don't really see what happens with them. But, like, realistically, the biggest thing that happened in this one was the fact that Thanagar is no more.
Yeah.
Mogo is, I think he's gonna die, according to the Durlans. Kind of a little unclear, honestly. I thought they mentioned it, but then at the same time, they kind of didn't. Something is happening with Tharos, who's not. They specifically stated he is not dead. Something's happened, so something's happening with him over there. And yeah, that was basically it, though.
Yeah. So ultimately, like, I think I really don't have much to say on this. I think it's like still good enough. The action's cool enough. This is kind of, because it is such a big action issue, I think the art kind of carries a lot of this because the art is spectacular. So yeah, I don't know. To be honest, this is another series, like, I do like it, but this is one that I'm kind of starting to feel like if I dropped it, I don't know if I'd really be that upset about it. Like, I don't think it's bad at all. I think it's very solid. And I would continue to read this on DC Universe Infinite, but it's one of those ones where it's just like, I don't know. I don't know how much. I don't feel like super compelled to continue picking this up currently. Probably will for a little bit at least, but yeah, I don't know. It's good though. I do like it. It's just not kind of. It's consistently pretty solid. You know, pretty good. But I don't think it really, with some exceptions, I don't think it really hits like super high heights.
No, it definitely doesn't. You know, I like I said, I think the biggest thing is the fact that Thanagar just got destroyed by Mogo. That's like really for me the biggest thing that's happened in this issue, and that was at the very beginning, and you didn't even see it happen. You just saw the aftermath of it.
Right.
So realistically, like, I feel like this one kind of did not hit home at all. You know, it kind of left it a bit weird towards the end. They're like, the ship that Carol like got repaired is like barreling straight into this like ginormous looking monster. But for me, it kind of seemed like it was like something that like Carol was making, because it seemed a little like pink.
Yeah, it was pink. Yeah, it was.
So I think maybe it's just a construct, but I don't know specifically. But at the same time, they also said they have no idea where they're going, like on their navigation charts. So I don't know, who knows. But yeah, overall, this one really didn't do anything at all, besides the fact that at the very beginning, you're just like, oh yeah, Thanagar's gone. It's like, oh, okay. But yeah, overall, this really nothing happens here, like, at all. So yeah, it was, I don't know, not pointless per se, but it was just a read. I don't know. I thought it was fine. I don't have much to say on this besides the fact that they mentioned War Journal again, which I hate. So yeah, they told me to go read it, and no, not
go read it again, Sebastian. Go read it.
I'm not doing that. So yeah, I don't know. I thought this one was fine, so I'm just gonna give it a 7. But you know, I don't know. They really didn't do a lot for the story in this one.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I was going to give it an 8 for a while when I was reading it. I think just the art's so good, but I'm just going to give it a 7 as well, because like, it's fine. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I do need to start cutting some stuff from my pull list, and so this one, I'm not going to cut it yet, but it is like probably 3rd on my list of like things to possibly cut after like Titans and the Flash. So yeah, and that would bring us to the last issue before the X-Men block, which is of course Ultimate Spider-Man number 10. Written by Jonathan Hickman. We do not have the series regular artist of Marco Cicchetto on this issue, but we do have David Messina, whose style I think is close enough. It's still like, It is distinct, but it's close enough that it still feels consistent. Yeah, the other thing is this is not a heavy action issue, so like the art kind of being, you know, Marco Cicchetto is a little bit less important, I think, on an issue like this. That being said, Marco Cicchetto did do the cover, and that is probably my favorite cover of the week. Sick as hell cover. Doing homages to 2 classic Spider-Man covers of the past. So that's very cool. As for this issue itself, pretty simple. It is just Ben and Jonah going around and kind of figuring out a lot of what we already know about the Kingpin and, you know, the Maker and the whole kind of, you know, power dynamic of this world. It's them kind of going around talking to a bunch of different people to try and figure out, you know, what's going on with Kingpin and the Daily Bugle and all that. But then the 2 big ones are they talked to Gwen about it and they talked to Harry about it, seeing as, you know, they got sold Oscorp by Fisk after Norman Osborn died. And so they kind of use that angle to try and figure out what's going on there. Gwen is not happy about that, but Harry does ultimately go and kind of, you know, explain a lot of it to him. He gives them the information about Fisk. He gives them the whole data drive and everything. And it ends with them about to kind of actually go and do their story about the Daily Bugle and Fisk and all that stuff, and about who's, you know, pulling Fisk strings as well. So Yeah, that's kind of all there is to this issue. I think it is good. I mean, this series, you know, it's a very solid series, and I think this continues to be very solid. I think the one kind of criticism I have about this issue, first of all, this is not a criticism, but Spider-Man's not in this, and Peter's also kind of barely in this. I don't have a problem with that, but you know, if you're going into this expecting like big action stuff, big Spider-Man stuff, that's not what this issue is. For me, the one kind of criticism I do have is, and it's kind of a double-edged sword, because while it is satisfying to see these characters figure all this stuff out, right, in kind of real time, seeing them piece it together and puzzle it out, that is satisfying. At the same time, since we already know all of this information, it kind of feels like they maybe didn't need to spend an entire issue on this, because it kind of is just like, we're seeing characters figure out stuff for the entire issue that we already know. And so it's kind of like, we don't really make any new ground there. However, I think that is saved by the fact that the banter between Ben and Jonah is really fun. I really like these characters paired together. They have kind of when they're having their conversation with Harry, it is really fun the way they're just like kind of pushing his buttons, and he gets really pissed off, and they're just like, yeah, you know, we're having a good time, you know, we're kind of doing this banter. I think that felt really just fun and natural dialogue between those two. And I do like how intelligent they are being made out to be. You know, we have them, they just straight up figure out that Harry Osborn is the Green Goblin. You know, stuff like that I think is cool. So dialogue is really tight. You know, plot is good. The banter between Ben and Jonah, the characterizations, all that stuff works. For me, it's just the one thing is that I kind of wish we had gotten some more headway with the story rather than just, you know, watching these two characters learn information that we already know all of at this point.
Yeah. I think this was, it was actually very good, considering it wasn't focused on Peter at all. It was focused on Ben and Jonah. You know, I think they did a good job of like still like keeping up. Like there was still some like what was it? Specific word, and I don't remember it. Suspense. They're still like, they still had like a bunch of suspense in this one, and there was like no real like threat in this one either, though. But they still kept like some sort of suspense in it, which I think they did a very good job of. But like you said, it was just basically Jonah and Ben basically trying to write like a story about, you know, a bit like kind of being a bit different, because like their paper has been mostly about, you know, Green Goblin and Spider-Man and just like these masked people. But while they were still writing about them, they're writing about like why they have shown up, really, and just like everything behind like you said, Kingpin and all that stuff. And so, you know, like when they first confronted Gwen about it, and you know, they're like, don't get upset about this, but we need to ask you these questions. And very clearly she got upset because she realized, like, she knows that Harry is the Green Goblin and all that, and that I'm pretty sure that Peter is Spider-Man as well. And so she obviously got like a bit upset at the fact that they were like not hassling her about this, but like, you know, being reporters about it, especially since she's given that, like, she's basically she's an investor to their companies. So she obviously
she's
doesn't
like
want to,
solo funding them essentially.
Exactly. And you know, especially so since they're hassling her and basically hassling Oscorp about like this thing, about the fact that, you know, they actually own Stark Stain, and they purchased them for insanely cheap. I think it was like 248,000 only, which, you know, for that big of a company is ridiculous. Like, obviously that's still like a hell of a lot of money, but for that big of a company, that's like literally pennies, I feel like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, in real life, Activision Blizzard was bought by Microsoft for like $67 billion or something.
Exactly. So like that's like pennies. So yeah, so that, you know, the fact that they're getting that close and like hitting that close to home for her, obviously that's gonna upset her, you know. And then I don't think it was like it wasn't a birthday, it was just like a dinner that, you know, Mary Jane confronted Ben about it, and you know, she basically being like, just like calm down about it, but he's like, obviously I can't. And then, you know, towards the very end, Harry confronted them, both of them, and for me, you know, the biggest thing about this issue was how it ended and who they made, like, quote unquote, made write the paper.
That's true. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, which was Ben Reilly, which is, if I'm not mistaken, is the Scarlet Spider, right?
Yes, who is now Chasm. He's kind of been through a whole bunch of shit, but that's who that is.
Exactly.
Also known as the clone of Peter Parker in the 616.
Yeah, it's a bunch of things, but yeah, for me that was like one of the biggest things about this issue was who, like, them bringing like this quote unquote character into this universe, the Ultimate Universe.
I'm kind of surprised that they did Ben Reilly and not like Ben Urich or something.
No, but But yeah. I think this one, it's not like it was like needed, like we were like sick of the action or anything, because genuinely the action in this series has just been great all around. Like I haven't like felt like there was one that like has been like super like tiresome or anything like that. But this one was nice to see, like especially since we don't see a lot of this relation specifically, because obviously Ben is dead, in the main universe. So like seeing this relationship and seeing this paper like form around them and like basically how they are working, I think it was very nice to see, and it was very refreshing just to see this world building again. The Ultimate Spider-Man series is just the best Ultimate book for me. It just does such a good job of like world building and just like actual storytelling
Did you see, by the way, speaking of Ultimate books, did you see we're getting Ultimate Wolverine in January?
I
Yeah,
did.
that should be pretty cool.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I saw that. But yeah, I think this one this series just still does such a good job of storytelling. And next issue, I do believe we are getting some action, considering we are going to get the not this universe's of Black Cat, because we've already seen the original Black Cat, but like this universe's version of the female version of the Black Cat.
Right, more like I don't think it'll be, well, it might be Felicia actually, but
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if her name's. I assume it's still going to be Felicia, considering everybody else's name is like the same. Obviously, her style is different, but yes.
Martin Giachetto really likes drawing big frizzy hair.
Yeah.
That is a staple of a lot of his stuff.
But yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I'm excited for the next one. I am, because I love Black Cat as a character, so I'm curious to see how they're gonna, do her character in this one. Especially since he's married already in this one, and obviously they in like the main 616 they have like things going on between them.
Yeah.
Or have had at least. So yeah, I'm curious to see how that's gonna go off on this one in this universe. So yeah, super excited for the next one, and I absolutely loved this one. I'd give this one a 9.
I'm gonna give this one an 8. Still very solid, very good. But yeah, I think it's more just, again, because we didn't really see any new information. It was just us watching characters learn information that we already knew. But still good. Okay, time for the X-Men block, and we're gonna just go in alphabetical order as we so often do, starting with Mystique. Number 1, written and drawn by Declan Shalvey. So this is another one of the October, new launches for new X-Men from the Ashes series. This one, I believe, is also a miniseries. I think it's only going to be 5 issues. And I think the concept of this issue of this series, is very good. I don't think the execution gets it 100% amazing, but I think the concept is good. It's essentially, it is in like an espionage thriller starring Mystique and Nick Fury. And that's a cool concept. We have it right at the start. Maverick gets sent in to try and find Sabretooth, but instead it's just Mystique, posing as Sabretooth. And she's trying to get information about this one thing from Maverick. I don't remember what she calls it, but it sounds like some kind of drug or something. Something to some kind of big item, kind of a MacGuffin thing in the series, and presumably in the X-Men corner of the universe as a whole. So after that, the large bulk of the issue after that is Nick Fury trying to kind of figure out where she is, kind of trying to track her down. We even get a very brief appearance from White Nick Fury, the original Nick Fury, which I was kind of surprised to see. Last I knew, he was in like another universe or something, and that was after he was on the fucking moon. Oh, he's credited as a life model decoy here, though, so that may not actually be him. Regardless, though, so original Nick Fury sets current, modern Nick Fury Jr. on the tail of Mystique. She manages through some kind of trickery, some shape-shifting trickery, to get some money wired to her account from like an anti-mutant. She's not as much the figurehead, but someone who is affiliated with an anti-mutant group, and just to get some money from her, and then blows up this ship, and then she kind of is able to escape. And then we have she also kind of blows up a house that Nick Fury goes into to try and kill him. And then so that kind of all catches up to the present day, where in the present day, Nick Fury goes with a whole team to where he thinks Mystique is hiding out, and just they shoot her, and it seems like it might not be Mystique. It's definitely not Mystique, but it seems like it's Mystique's girlfriend, or I think they might actually be married, actually. Irene, otherwise known as Destiny, who she didn't see the future, and because we see her masked there, and so She gets shot. She might be dead. I think it would be very interesting if she is. That's like a huge fucking thing to just like kill her off immediately. However, it may not even be her, and she may not be dead. Like, it's a big cliffhanger. I think it's a very effective cliffhanger, but they can undo that super easily if they wanted to, I think. So that's kind of what this issue is. And I think, like, again, the execution doesn't always work. I think it does drag on a little bit. It's a little bit of a longer issue, so I think that does make sense. Like, they're trying to build up the series and the concept and everything. That's fine. I do think, though, that the execution does feel like it drags on a little bit, particularly in the parts where, like Nick Fury is just kind of trying to find out, what Mystique is up to. But I like the idea of this just, espionage thriller of Mystique versus Nick Fury, of Mystique kind of going back to her roots as a more kind of mysterious villain character. That's something that Declan Shalvey points out in the kind of, his editorial message at the end, as something he was really trying to focus on doing. And so I think that is all, good stuff. It doesn't 100% land for me, but I think, like, again, as a concept, this is good. I kind of put this in the same bag as like Sentinels from last week. It's not as original a concept as Sentinels, but I think it is still an effective one that could go to some cool places if they get the execution kind of more tightened up a little bit in future issues.
Yeah, I actually was I was quite interested with this one. I do agree with you that the fact that it did drag on, but I actually really liked the whole espionage bit of it, and especially Mystique when she was on screen, quote unquote on screen. Like, I really liked her character. I really liked the way they did her character. Like, I mean, specifically for me, this is like my first time reading anything with Mystique. The only other times I've like seen anything with Mystique is really just like the movie Mystique, and she's very different from this one. I understand.
Yeah, she's had a wild time during the Krakoan era. She was like on the ruling body of Krakoa, and there's a lot that went.
Yeah, I read that here. Yeah. So I think actually I really like this version of Mystique, like this character version of Mystique. I think she does. It's really good. I love the whole espionage bit between her and Nick Fury. It is, she's trying to find this thing, which again, like, I don't remember. I'm pretty sure it starts with like a P.
It does start with a P. Yeah.
It starts with a P. I do not remember what it's called. But yeah, I guess what was this guy's name? Maverick. Yeah. He lost his healing factor. I assume that's that happened in Blood Hunt.
I think it must have when he was a vampire. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you assume he lost it when he got like cured and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a thing. And then I thought, when I was first reading, I thought Mystique was Maverick. Obviously.
I think they do a good job of making you think that. Yeah.
Yeah, they do a good job of making you think that. And then it turns out she was just like one of the henchmen. And I thought Maverick knew Mystique was part of it as well. I got a bit confused at that part.
Seems like he didn't. I don't think he did. Yeah.
Like, at first I thought because at first I swear he's like, oh, good job, Mystique. Now you got to kill these guys. Like, you killed these guys. And I thought it was like Mystique was like undercover. Like, he knew Mystique was undercover with them. And then the second team came, it was just like, I don't know if I just like read that fast or what, but like I got a bit confused there. But like, I don't know, it's fine. I didn't gripe over that too much. And then I did think, like, again, like you said, like, it got a bit slow, specifically with the Nick Fury part, like when he was at S.H.I.E.L.D., just like researching into Mystique and stuff like that. I did think that part was a little bit slow, but then obviously it picks up again instantly with Mystique just blowing up his house for whatever reason. I assume it's because he's like searching into her, but like at that, like I don't see the real reason behind it yet. We'll probably get to that later down the line, but that was just a bit out of nowhere for me, especially for like her character. I don't know, not specifically her character, but just like her, like the reasoning behind it. I feel like is just like super far-fetched, maybe. And then the fact that Destiny at the end might be dead, left unclear, obviously, but very good cliffhanger as well. Just in the fact that, like, as well, just like it wasn't Nick Fury that specifically killed, quote unquote, killed Irene. It was one of the people he was with, where he was like, she's reaching, and they just like blow her full of holes. And I don't know, we didn't see much of anything there, but obviously who knows. But I thought this one was very interesting. Like I said, it's a bit boring in the middle, but overall I actually was really interested in this one, and I love the way they did Mystique in this one as well. So overall positive for me. Interested to see how this goes forward, because I actually really like the espionage bit of this whole thing. And so I'd give this an 8. Man, 7 to 8. I'm gonna go with 8.
All right, I'm gonna go 7 for this one. I think still solid, but it's just not quite completely hooked me yet. Speaking of completely hooking me, Sebastian, Uncanny X-Men. Okay, so First of all, Sebastian, I just want to prepare you. Are you ready? I'm going to go on one of my patented rants for this issue.
Oh, boy.
100%. Yeah.
Let me. All right. Before you take away all of my talking points, I'm just gonna say what I thought of it.
Okay.
Real quick.
All right. First of all, writer Gail Simone, artist David Marquez.
Yes. I actually really enjoyed this one. I think for me, this is like the best Uncanny X-Men book we've gotten.
That was actually what I was going to start off by asking you. I was going to be like, Sebastian, I know like you didn't like the first one, and that was very Krakoa-focused, so I kind of understand that. And the past two have been a little bit slower, but you cannot tell me that this issue did not convince you that this series is goated.
No, this one is this. Absolutely love this issue. You know, I won't go too much into detail, so I don't take away his talking points, but just know that I actually think this is like the best one of this series so far. I think the villain, they went a bit more into her back. I discovered a bit more of her background.
This was new to me as well. Yeah.
Okay. So, we got a bit more of her background in this one, and kind of her intentions are still a little flawed for me, but it's somewhat more understandable. I don't completely agree with the fact that, I still don't completely agree with her, like, reasons behind why she's doing what she's doing, but that's besides the point. I think they did a great job with the art. Absolutely loved the art. I loved the story in this one, behind this one. And just, I think this one has been the best one so far.
Okay. So, I have been, this is something I have been kind of on the fence about for a couple issues now. I have thought that I would get to this point with this series, but I've been hesitant to outright say it because it was still, it's still pretty early in the series. However, with this issue, I think I can pretty fairly confidently say that at least currently, this is my favorite Marvel book that is currently running. This fucking rocks, man. It rocks so much. I love it. Most of this issue is just a kind of a big fight between Rogue and the Hag, Sarah. As Sebastian mentioned, we do get a little bit more of her. We do kind of get her backstory where, after her kind of, relationship with Charles, where it seems like she did actually have a kid with him. She basically was in like a hurricane. I think it seems like it was Hurricane Katrina, since this does take place in Louisiana. Her kid ended up dying in that hurricane, and she kind of fell into the water and was there for like 3 days, and then came out as this Hag villain character. I actually think the origin was the weakest part of the issue. I don't think it was bad by any stretch. I think it was totally fine. But just comparison to the rest of the stuff that is in this issue, it didn't quite, wow me in the same way. But again, I have been banging on about this for the past 3 issues. What just works so well about this series is the characters. I think they are all so tightly nailed in there. Their personalities are so, like, absolutely spot on. It is so clear that Gail Simone really, really has a deep love and care for these characters, and she really knows how to write them. We're gonna talk about Wolverine #2 next, but I think like the way that she captures Logan's voice in this series is way better than it's being captured in his own fucking solo series. And he's like not the main. I mean, he's like one of the more prominent characters of the team, but he's not like, I would say this issue in particular, like this is very much a Rogue centric issue. I think all of the core team does get some good moments. Like very clearly, Nightcrawler and Jubilee have been the ones who have had the least to do. I do hope we get to see kind of more of them, but even like though they haven't had much page time, they still like their characterizations I think are very clearly dialed in. And for me, just like the thing that this series does so well is manages to make these incredibly just fucking awesome, badass action moments where these characters are just like getting these so many just cool moments while also being intensely vulnerable. And that dichotomy is what makes it so just easy to get sucked in and connect to these characters. Like you get to see the really cool big action moments, but you also get to see their vulnerabilities, which makes you then kind of connect to them more. It makes them more relatable. And I think, and their vulnerabilities come not so much from their physical strength, but from their just, emotions and feelings and, how fucking sad everybody is. Everybody's so fucking sad in this series. They're so sad over like Krakoa. Just all of that emotional depth and nuance is just so effortlessly conveyed here. Whereas it's just not present as much in the rest of the From the Ashes stuff. And I like a lot of the other From the Ashes stuff, but it's just not there like it is here. And like, you just get these, like Rogue has like the coolest fucking line from any comic I've read this year, maybe. There's a point where right when she's kind of towards the start of her fight with the Hag, she just fucking brings this out. She's like, I know you're here, Sarah. It's just you and me now. What say this sweet Southern gal teaches y'all some proper manners, you twisted murdering bitch. Like, it's such a cool fucking one-liner. She's got some really cool. I think the action itself it's good, but it's not like kind of amazing. It's kind of more the banter there that really works. And then right towards the end, they kind of all learn that the Hag is sending like this army to go take down the X-Men at the X-Mansion, because they've kind of figured out where the outliers, the kids are. And they actually learned this from Dr. Ellis, who was like, I'm just kind of going to warn you, like, they are coming your way. I don't want these kids to die. I'm not about that. Like, I hate mutants and all that stuff, but I don't want these kids to die. So she gives them a warning. And Gambit, man, Gambit has another fucking great character moment. Like, he learns that, he's like, well, that got me feeling some kind of way. And then he does like a motivational speech, and it's like not a great one, but it's so like pure Gambit. I don't even know Gambit that well, but he's just like, he has this great, like, he's like, well, there's less than 1 million Cajuns in the entire world, kids. No sense in losing the best one. And he's like, I don't got a catchphrase. Fight forward, no shame in running if you need to. He's like, get the fuck out of here if you guys need to. Like, he understands the, how these kids just got kind of sucked into this, and he's ready to single-handedly take on the entire fucking army. It's so cool. But then you have fucking Jubilee and Nightcrawler pop up, and they're like, nah, man, we're fighting this battle with you. Like, we're gonna help out. We're the X-Men. It's such a cool, like, kind of last stand kind of moment. It very much reminds me of just Captain America standing alone against the forces of Thanos and Endgame. And then you have Logan coming out. He's like, that might have been the all-time worst battle speech in history. And he's there. He's been fucking blinded by his battle with Sarah. He's going Daredevil mode. He's got a blindfold wrapped around his eyes, and he's still just like, all right, point me in the direction, I'll start killing. Like, it's just every character is, again, so tightly dialed in. Their characterizations all work so well. It's just like, it's glorious. It's really, really great. And next issue, I'm sure will also be awesome with, the rest of the X-Men at the house kind of making their last stand. It is the finale of the arc next issue before they do, and they're going to have a crossover with the other X-Men book, the Jed MacKay one, in a couple issues. But yeah, I'm so into this issue and so into the series on every level. It's been just such a pleasant just feeling reading every issue of this. I was excited for this series before it dropped, but I didn't have, nowhere near the same level of hype that I do for it now. And just like stellar work this creative team is doing. Like, it's so clearly the best X-Men book running right now. And I think it's the best series running at Marvel. So yeah, absolutely loved it. I also read this while I was in Louisiana, which is cool. It was set in Louisiana, so that was kind of fun. And yeah, just amazing stuff. I have basically no complaints about this issue. It's again, another basically perfect superhero comic from this series, I think.
No, yeah, I actually really enjoyed this one. Yeah, really enjoyed this one. I love the art in this one, especially. I actually really love the art in this one. It's kind of like why it's so high on my list. But yeah, the whole the Logan bit, the Rogue bit, just like you mentioned, everybody just being sad about just like literally everything at this point, like everything that's been happening to them has just like all come flooding in and all that. So it's just overall, I think this is like one of the best ones Uncanny X-Men has ever made. And so yeah, I'm gonna give this genuinely, pick of the week for me.
Me as well, yeah.
Best thing I read, and genuinely, I'm gonna give it a 10. Overall, just loved this.
I am as well. I actually was gonna give it a 9 for a while, and that was mostly because, again, the origin didn't necessarily wow me, but I was just looking back to these character moments. I'm just like, how can I not give this a 10?
Yeah,
man, like, these characters are all like their perfect versions of them. Like, this series has made me a Rogue and Gambit like super fan. I didn't dislike them before. I just hadn't read very much of them, but like, after this, it's just like, these are some of my favorite characters, and I think Logan is so, nailed as well. I think, again, I hope they do more with Jubilee and Nightcrawler. They probably will next issue, since they're very involved in kind of the front lines of the fight, it seems. But yeah, amazing stuff. I'm so excited for the rest of the series. This is always becoming like my most anticipated issue every week it drops, and yeah, 10 for me as well. So from there we go to the final issue of the episode, which is Wolverine number 2, written by Saladin Ahmed, and the artist is Martin Coccolo. Okay, so we thought about the first issue. I gave it a 7. I kind of was like, hey, again, this is the thing. So it's written by Saladin Ahmed, who also, is the writer of the current Daredevil series. And again, I mentioned this last issue. I think that Daredevil series has a lot of very good concepts. It just does not always get the execution. It just very often does not get the execution in a place where I end up enjoying seeing those concepts play out This series, I think so far is kind of in that boat, although I do think because I don't have as much of an attachment to Wolverine as I do to Daredevil, I am a little bit more open to it here. That being said, again, I think Wolverine's voice is just not handled well here. It doesn't really feel like him when he's talking. There are some moments where it does, but I think a lot of the time, like, they're focusing so much on his, like, berserker animal rage, and the way they're doing that, I just don't think it's the best version of that. And I don't think they are nailing the kind of, sad loner vibes that Uncanny is nailing so well. This one is mostly focused on Logan versus the Wendigo. That is actually almost entirely of what this issue is made up of. They kind of drop the whole adamantium opponent thing from the first issue for a minute. They don't, Cyber's not in this at all. They do have like some like Department H has a brief moment where they're kind of hunting Wolverine down. He just kind of escapes. But then, yeah, he fights the Wendigo. But ultimately, the Wendigo starts asking for help. And Logan realizes that it is a kid who was starving and, did the whole cannibalism thing, turned into the Wendigo, has not had the chance to infect anybody else yet. So then Logan's mission is to kind of try and help this Wendigo out and kind of keep him from turning anybody else. So Department A shows up again. They kind of, they split. Logan tries to just kind of make sure that he gets the Wendigo out of that situation so he doesn't end up, infecting anybody else. And they manage to escape, but then the Wendigo sees like a dead body, the bloodlust takes over, and it ends up eating this, other person, probably fatally. I don't know if this is going to be something where it's like, they end up turning into a Wendigo as well, and we're just going to have Wendigos all over the place. But yeah, that's kind of the extent of the issue. And I do think it's better than the first issue. I like the Wendigo. I've always kind of been a fan when that character shows up in any of its various forms. I think the fight with the Wendigo is fine. It's not bad. The art is incredible, and Martin Coccolo's art is like the main reason why I am excited for these issues going forward. Is I think he has genuinely amazing art in pretty much everything he does. But yeah, I think again the voice of Wolverine just feels weird to me. The concepts are cool, and I don't mind that we took a break from the cyber adamantium, other gold adamantium or whatever. I don't mind that. I think, we're moving at a good pace right now, even though it's only 2 issues in of, these concepts and how we're using them. It doesn't feel like it's ballooning into too much yet. It might get there, but it feels focused enough while still, adding enough plot elements in to keep variety in there. So yeah, I'm curious to see how my feelings on the series develop as it goes forward, because I actually didn't mind this issue. I thought it was pretty decent, pretty solid, pretty good even. Again, outside of Wolverine's kind of voice issues, I think. But that being said, I gave the first issue a 7 of Daredevil, gave the second issue an 8, and then I was pretty positive on that series after the first 2 issues, and then it just fell off a cliff, I think. So I am kind of expecting that to happen. Again, I don't know if it will because I don't have quite the attachment to Wolverine as I do to Daredevil, but we'll see. It may still end up getting to that point for me. So I'm a little bit more optimistic on this run as a whole after this issue, but I'm still pretty skeptical about how this will develop because of my other experience with Saladin Ahmed's writing. So yeah, not bad, but still kind of hesitant about where this might go.
I'm not sure if I like this more or less than the first one, or if it's just the same for me. My biggest problem is like what you mentioned is just I think they did not do a good job with Wolverine in this one at all. I think he's just like his just like inner narration. And
it doesn't feel like him.
Character it really does not feel like him at all. And I kind of understand that like that is kind of the point of him going into the forest was like kind of gain control again over his like animalistic side, which we do kind of see when the H group, I think is what they're right.
Department H, yeah.
Department H. When they show up in the forest, like he doesn't instantly like he was about to just like instantly go in and like start attacking them, but he like reeled back in his claws and was like, actually, let's just observe and see and just like kind of avoid them for now, And so I like that part like makes sense to me. Just for me, it was like the way he like was dealing with the Wendigo and like just like the whole iteration of like his character and all that stuff. Just like it felt off for me. Like the biggest one for me, the part that felt off for me was when towards the end when the Wendigo like got a scent of blood and like, started going after the person that it attacked. I feel like Logan himself reacted very slowly there because obviously he smelled it at the same time as the Wendigo. And so I feel like he should have been able to react as well, like, and realize what was about to happen. Like, but it just like took him like I felt like for me, like in comic terms, like it felt like it took like a forever amount of time for him to just like be like, oh shit. Like I felt like he had to finish his narration first, then react. Like it just felt super slow, and like everything just pertained to the Wendigo. Just like it felt like for me, like he just was not thinking properly. I don't know. Like the fight between the Wendigo and him, I think that that was fine. I think it was enjoyable to a point. Like seeing him like attack this thing that wasn't obviously trying to like specifically hurt him. But yeah, I think overall I'm just not sure how I feel about this one yet. I don't know if I like it more or less than the first one. I'm kind of leaning towards a little less. I think the art in this one was fine, like specifically like I said, the fight between them two. I think the art in that one was pretty good. I didn't like overly hate it. I just story-wise, I think they didn't do him right, and then the Wendigo itself, I feel like it's just like I just don't understand why we need this like side, like quote unquote side story. Like I don't know. Maybe the Wendigo's gonna like end up being like this huge part of like the other story with the adamantium going forward. But right now, I don't know. I didn't like the Wendigo in this at all, too much. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a 7, same as last one, but it's gonna like in my scale, it's less. I liked it less than the first one.
All right, well, I'm gonna give it an 8. That might be a little bit on the generous side, but I do think like there was enough here that I could kind of latch on to that I think could be good in the future if developed well. And again, the art's stunning. Again, like so, problems with Wolverine's voice and personality aside, I do think this was better than the first one. That's also a problem I had with the first one, so it's not like a new thing for this one. So I'm going to give it an 8. But yeah, still, again, not at all sure about how this is going to develop going forward. And that would wrap it up for this episode of Earth Minus Comics. Next episode is going to be absolutely fucking stacked. There is just a shit ton of new stuff. We've got Absolute Wonder Woman #1. So I hear this fucking rules. I hear this is really, really good. It is possible that if I like this series enough, I might just drop the core Wonder Woman series because this could just be way better. It sounds like it kind of is. New issue of Avengers. This one seemingly is where Doom is going to pop back into the fray a little bit, and potentially we'll see kind of what he's been up to since the end of Bloodhunt, because he's kind of just been gone since then. New issue of Dazzler. I read the first issue of Dazzler, thought I would hate it because I really don't like the writer. Actually, this is my favorite thing the writer's done so far. I haven't read issue #2 yet, but I didn't mind the first one. I think the first one was actually not bad. New issue of the start of a new run on Detective Comics. So this is written by Tom Taylor, who just finished up a very critically acclaimed Nightwing run, and also just finished up his Titans run, which was bad. So I'm not sure how this is going to go, but I'm hoping it's good. New issue of The Flash. As mentioned, I think I might be dropping this soon. After the conclusion of that, first year's worth of story, I just don't know how invested I am with this run going forward. So if I don't like this one, then I probably will just drop it. But yeah, maybe I'll give it one more after this. I don't know. New issue of Green Arrow. This is the finale of Joshua Williamson's run. Well, except there's an annual issue as well, which is also he's going to be writing. But yeah, outside of that, it's also the start of the next run. We did a little bit of a backup story setting that up. New issue of Incredible Hulk. Last issue was really good, so I'm excited for this one. This is kind of seemingly, again, the arc that wraps up the first kind of main chapter of this run. New issue of Iron Man. New series of Iron Man starting here. I've heard kind of mixed things about this. I don't know really much about the writer. I don't think he's really done much comic work. So yeah, not sure about this one. The Moon is Falling is issue #2. Didn't talk about that first issue, but I read it. It was very, 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 very solid, very fun. Written by the same writer as Transformers. So, very, very solid stuff. I mentioned this a little bit earlier in the issue, but we got a new issue, new run of Nightwing from Dan Watters. I think that should be pretty cool. Dan Watters is a good writer. New series called Null Hunter, which is from Michael Walsh, who is the writer and artist of Frankenstein, Universal Monsters Frankenstein. This is seemingly like a cyberpunk setting retelling of the Herculean kind of trials and everything. So that could be very cool. I think it's a cool concept. New issue of the Power Fantasy. Last issue I thought was kind of confusing, but I still like the series. So, I'm gonna give that a read. The finale of the first arc of Rook Exodus is next episode as well. Great series. Very excited to see how that kind of plays out. We don't know when the next issue will be after that, but But yeah, just very solid series. New issues of Scarlet Witch and Spider-Boy, which I have not read any of to this point, but Daredevil's on the cover of both of them, so I'm picking these ones up. New issue of Superman. Dan Mora is the new artist on this series for a little bit at least, so that's awesome. He's a great artist. New issue of Universal Monsters Frankenstein as well, as I mentioned that earlier. We also have the return of Void Rivals. It took September off, but it is back, seemingly looping in the Cobra side of the universe into this book as well now, so hopefully that'll be good. And then new issues of X Factor, which I don't like, and X-Men, which I am starting to like. So yeah, anything on your end you would like to shout out?
Turtles.
All right. Well, yeah, as always, thank you everybody for watching or listening on whatever platform you may be on. If you are on YouTube, you can, of course, leave a like on the video. If you enjoyed the video, you can also subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of our videos, and you can also hit the bell notification if you want to be notified when we post new videos so you do not miss any. You can also leave us a comment letting us know what some of your favorite comics are from the past couple of weeks, and if we're not reading stuff that we should be reading that you think is very good. And you can also get in contact with us at our email address, which is earthsmaniascomicspod@gmail.com. That is all one word. You can also, of course, follow the show over on Spotify if you're listening over there so that you can stay on top of when we post new episodes on there as well. So yeah, as always, thank you everybody for watching or listening. We appreciate it as always, and we will see you in the next episode.